And class is in session. You're listening to Shit Shooting 101. I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Joining us today, a pilot of reason, a captain of logic, a chauffeur of uncomfortable truths, leading the fleet into the heart of darkness with a spotlight of brightest dawn, she beckons her tribe to the call of a warrioress on the mission to end all missions and summoning eternal retribution. A mother grizzly protecting her cubs by tooth and claw, a loyal angel trumpeting the hounds of heaven to action, here to clean eardrums of propagandist plaque and awaken the zombified tomb dwellers to resurrected reality, it's Julianne Romanello. Julianne, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Josh. I could not have asked for a better introduction. I'm not sure I live up to all of it, but it was wonderful.
You definitely do, my friend. You're a fan favorite and a favorite of mine, so it's always awesome having you back on the podcast. So thanks right from the top.
Thank you, Josh. I'm excited to be here.
And as you know me, I like to jump right into the conversation.
Yeah.
So, the way I'd like to start, because I had a podcast recently where I went on a bit of a rant talking about my unemployment status and how frustrating it is. And I wasn't so eloquent as I would have liked to have been. Maybe I can articulate it better for you to, go about your way and your studies in the workforce and where it's going. But the things that the hurdles you have to jump over, the hoops you have to jump through just to get an interview these days is absolutely preposterous. And then you find yourself against 50 other candidates sometimes. And there's no way to stand out like that. And this is after you've been online putting in application after application. Then they want you to do an online skills test or three, and then there's just no way just to talk to a human being and give them a piece of paper that you wrote your information on your credentials. And I have the credentials, I have the experience, but I can't get my foot in the door anywhere, and it's flabbergasting. Um, can I bring that word back? The flabbergastery of it all. Um, but I would. It seems like there's an intentional crush of the human labor force that's taking place right now, so that they can manipulate it to bring in robotics and AI systems. And I know that you do a lot of research into what's going on with the workforce and the restructuring, if I can use their terminology, because it's not restructuring, it's controlled demolition,
Yeah.
but they want to call it that. So, what are your views on that? Where it is, where it's going?
Well, I'm so glad that you bring that topic up because I think if we are if we're going to do anything about the mess that we're in, we have to educate the common person, the everyday person about how this is going to affect them. This being the reset, Agenda 21, 2030, the New World Order, whatever you want to call it. Uh, the regular guy on the street has to know how it's going to affect them. And workforce development and the future of work, as they call it, is you can't get any closer than that to the regular person on the street that's going to have to, you know, choose whether or not to participate in this brutal regime or, to fight it, and if so, how. So, so I've tried to focus on workforce topics because they're close to everyone's experience, and because I came into this looking at education, and education right now, all of our educational systems are being set up as pipelines to what? To the workforce. So these two topics go hand in hand. And what you described, Josh, it's sickening because 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when I started to learn about the developments that are going on, I saw, and I was looking at higher education, I could see where this was going, and I could see you're going to have to develop a huge online profile, and you're going to submit it to employers who have AI programs screening all of the candidates. Uh, with no human touch whatsoever involved, just so that, an HR team might get a few uh, links to your LinkedIn profile, right? So there's a huge technology interface, or intermediary between one human and another. And AI is, for all of the hype, which I've never personally understood because I've always been a Luddite myself, I guess. For all the hype, it is unable to make good decisions. I mean, it can make predictable, uh, you know, rules based projections about, what might work here, but it can't make a good decision about who a person is, how they'll fit in the company, and what a company needs, right? Um, but what we're seeing is that all of the major employers, like huge firms, and they're driving this, huge corporations, and then from there it trickles down into, even the mom and pop um, enterprises in your local town. Uh, they are on board with the AI because it's the new thing. Because ultimately, I think the people who are controlling the corporations don't care about the average person at all. And they know that they have waiting in the wings robots and algorithms and other processes that can do the human work more efficiently. I've got a little screenshot that says, uh, it's like robots don't get sick. Robots don't have drama in their life. Robots aren't going to bug you as a management team, right? So you have corporations that want to get rid of human beings, and they're using the AI because it sounds fancy and innovative. Um, that's on a sort of superficial level, but then really they're using it because they don't want human beings with all the messiness and fuss to be doing jobs that they can just frankly outsource to these programs. So, when I look at this trajectory, and I think, how do we convince the person on the street that they need to take action against the agenda, or speak up about it in some way? I think you've got to show people that their actual accomplishments are they are being made obsolete on purpose by these corporations that are consolidating supply chains, and in that way they're shutting workers out. They're automating processes, and they're shutting people out. And they're also just creating a sense of chaos, and controlling a narrative such that everyone is starting to believe that we have to be looking forward, and we have to have change, and we have to have innovation. And I would say, why? Why do we need that? We don't really need that. Most people don't want it. You mentioned the human touch. Would you rather go to a, a fast food restaurant and key in your choices on a keypad or iPad, and have it, sort of vended out to you like a vending machine would? Or would you rather go talk to a person? Now, maybe someone would say, you shouldn't be eating fast food anyway. But okay, we all have our moments. And in that case, would you rather have human interaction or not? Most of us want the human interaction, but we're seeing a push from the top just to eliminate that. And because it's more efficient, I think, because the people at the top are cruel people who love control, and they just want to exercise their power. So so we need to make people aware of this. And I know I didn't really get into sort of the specifics of your question there, but as far as how I sort of approach the topic, that would be the lens in which I look at it.
Yeah, when I look at the push for AI and the job market and the workforce entirely, I don't know how it's going to completely work out, because there will have to be compartments of humans doing the things that they can't do. I mean, even like I said, looking for a job, which is a full-time job these days.
Yeah.
Um, there's a site called Zip Recruiter. I didn't know it at the time when I signed up for it, but it supposedly uses AI bots. And it's always sending me jobs for like surgeons and surgery jobs and things that I'm definitely not qualified for.
Yeah.
Sometimes I put my application in just to see if it'll go through.
Yeah, I mean there are tons of problems with this stuff, right? You know, these massive online programs, you know, there are so many kinks involved. And instead of waiting to work out the kinks, you know, which I wouldn't want to do anyway, just because I don't want to move everything to AI. But let's say you did. Instead of waiting to work out the kinks, all of these systems have just been launched as they are, and they're creating chaos and they're creating this, you know, this transitory period in which, you know, there are employers that are looking for real uh, you know, real people with real skills, all sorts of skills and knowledge to bring to the table. And those employers are unable to find people, you know, because the program hasn't worked. And then you have people who, like you know, are spending so much time and energy and mental energy, you know, using these web-based platforms and all of the technology to try to give these corporations, you know, your CV or resume in the format that they want, and it's just a waste of time because you're not getting the jobs sent to you that you would fit with, and they're not getting you. So I think that that rush to adopt these systems, even when there are these major problems with them, you know, that's part of it. You know, that's part of the design because you have to sort of, you know, you have to put people on edge, you have to string them along in order to really set the stage for people to demand things like universal basic income, you know, or new public social services that are going to help out with, you know, the costs that people are facing because of extended unemployment, you know. So I think that part of this is uh, this is a buzz phrase, you know, managing the transition. And when I look at, you know, like the economy and economic development, there's a big push in all of the sustainable development marketing materials to talk about transition finance. Well, I think there's also a sort of workforce transition or transition of the workforce that's going on too. And it's prolonging uncertainty to prepare for a swift and urgent implementation of this new system in which no one's going to have any work. It's all going to be, you know, AI driven. And the only thing that is left for human beings to do is to add their soft skills to make the AI seem more human. You know, that's what we're going to be good for in the future of work is adding our soft skills to make the machine look better.
One thing that I've noticed on a lot of these applications I've looked at, they want like I said, I'm a professional driver, but they want you to have your Class B license. They also want you to have HVAC certification. Um, that's its own separate job. Class B driver is its own separate job, and they want another thing on top of it. So three jobs in one, and pay you less than if you would have done one of those jobs a few years ago.
So what is that because of how the application is set up? They're just wanting you to list
What
all.
their requirements are,
Oh, it's just like the job listing has what.
right?
Ah, uh-huh. Which seems, I mean, to me that seems just part of the slow boil, the slow economic boil that we're all under right now. You know, people are going to be faced with, you know, tons of requirements for licenses of all sorts, you know, permits of all sorts, taxes of all sorts, fees of all sorts just to slowly drain us and make us need employment even more than we did before. But you're going to have to pay so much just to get your foot in the door. It's really a terrible war on the average person, you
Yeah,
know?
it's upskill, 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 and then you pay for that upskilling, and then you have to renew that application every year or so. Yeah, it's just keeping you under the thumb in every way that they possibly can.
Yeah, it's a hamster wheel. And that's what they mean by this lifelong learning BS that you see in education. Lifelong learning, that phrase sounds like, a nod to the intellectual life or the life of wonder, or, you're, flourishing as a human being, but it really means this hamster wheel. Oh, you have to get the next badge, you have to get the next micro credential, or else you're never going to get a job. And this is what, see, I'm going to get all fired up, Josh, because this is it just if people understood the magnitude of what this means, I think they would be out in the streets, but they just don't know. What this means is that, you have a you have a rat race. We're all going to be in the rat race, competing against each other in cutthroat ways, and not just for things like, oh, who has an up to date license that demonstrates a specific skill like driving, a technical skill. But then you're going to have badges that prove that you've had enough social, emotional experiences to lend to the company's, overall commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, or, whatever values they decide go along with the corporate mission, and people are going to be racing to do what? You know, get a whole host of badges marking that they participated in different sensitivity trainings. For what? To drive a vehicle from place to place. You could be a jerk and be a really good driver, right? But when employers have the upper hand and they know that they don't really need human beings, then, then they can squeeze people and they can promote this rat race among job applicants so that people will go out and chase anything that seems to give them a hope of getting a foot in the door. And that these employers, they have all of the control. Um,
Yeah, and as you mentioned, this isn't a natural evolution. It's not an organic progression of society the way that they're rolling out technological control. Nobody asked for it. It's been pushed upon us in every way, but they've had to, because it's been unnatural, they've had to enforce propaganda at every angle just to normalize it, I should say, and make it seem like it's just going to be a nice fluffy part of tomorrow's future where we'll be floating around and everything's lovely and ideal because technology fixes everything. But as you said, they just push it out there, bugs and all. And if it collapses upon itself, that's okay. We have technology to fix its collapse, and then it'll collapse, but we have technology to fix that. So it's just an ever repeating, ever recurring uh, problem reaction solution of technology.
yeah, and who, you know, who really understands how this stuff works? I mean, I know that there are there's an infinite level of, you know, I guess, I was going to say level of levels of expertise. That's redundant, but I couldn't find a better word quickly. But, I know that there is a long spectrum of skills that people have, an understanding of these technologies, that everything from an app developer to someone who's a cybersecurity expert, and everything in between and on both sides, right? But when we're talking about the kinds of programs that are really controlling the entire process of searching for a job, you know, and because this plays such a crucial part in this new economy, then I have to think that it's given a lot of priority by the the different developing resetting firms, right? Because they're moving the economy toward what? Toward human capital scoring, social credit scoring, um, social impact scoring, whatever you want to call it. It's about rating people and making money off changing people. And how do you get to that point? Well, you do it by a huge component of it is controlling how people catalog their own credentials and skills and present themselves and develop their personal brand, and how corporations uh, find ways to analyze and value rank that data. So setting up this system of how candidates apply for jobs is a crucial component of moving toward the new economy that's based on social credit scoring, right? So, because that's so important, I have to think that there is a special focus on developing these systems that is only really understood at the very top levels. We're talking by people at MIT, people, in the G Mafia. What is it? Google, Microsoft, Amazon. Who's the F? I know there's an F.
I'm not sure.
I can't think who it is, and then I think, well, there's a big technology. Oh, Facebook.
Oh,
Forgot
okay.
about that one. But we're like the top programming data analyst, or not data analysts, sorry. The top programmers and developers and cybersecurity experts, technologists, they work at those firms and very elite institutions. So even, the people who are have been working in IT for a very long time and have what to me would be an astounding level of skill and qualifications and understanding of those processes, they they don't even compare to the people who are setting up these larger systems that are going to be used for human capital scoring. I don't think. I mean, this is sort of my hunch, my speculation. So when you mention that we're in the process of a controlled demolition, and we're seeing the rollout of all these technologies that no one asked for, I agree completely, and I would say it's very dangerous that we're going in this direction because so few people know how it works, know how to control it, how to tweak it, how to hack it, so we are, by our acquiescence, we are allowing ourselves to become trapped in something that we cannot untangle ourselves. I would not even know where to begin. I guess, well, I take that back. A good way to begin would be to unplug, and just to get offline. But you have to have some sort of an economy that that people can who do that, who unplug, who get offline, can participate in. um, and right now, with the huge power behind the resetting corporations that are consolidating supply chains, including labor supply chains with our educational institutions, the likelihood that we will find that kind of, those pockets of Luddite work is really growing slimmer all the time.
The same way that they're narrowing down human labor, It starts in the school system where they're narrowing it down to only the teaching of science, technology, engineering, mathematics. No longer does history matter. In fact, that's a danger for them. So they don't want you learning history. Art is a danger to them. They don't want you learning art. Linguistics, unless you're speaking zeros and ones. Um, so, a question I wanted to ask you about was homeschooling because I always talk about that as if that's the good go to get your kids out of public school system and do homeschooling. But as far as Agenda 2030, I think that's an agenda that covers all arenas. And it seems like they've even covered homeschooling. And if they start pushing regulations where you can't get a high school degree without going through their criteria, their online criteria, um, then your all the education you receive through homeschooling will be worth nothing, just like my college education, because I didn't get a degree. It's worth nothing. I can't do anything with it, even though I still owe to it. But anyways, so do you see that they're using this massive move to homeschooling by parents uh, for some sort of push into online learning?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is pretty clear. I mean, you have a large homeschool community that doesn't want anything to do with online um, education, or they didn't until it became so important to demonstrate that you had credentials so that you could get into college. You know, if I mean, I think that I'm in Oklahoma, which is a big homeschool state, and you still have people here who are doing homeschool for its own sake, and they think this is a means to independence for my children and free thought, and I want to control the curriculum, and whatever they do with it later on, that's up to them, like the children. What they do with the education that they receive is it's their it's their responsibility. It's their right, their responsibility. But I think because the public schools have been just they have been under a barrage of attacks, academic attacks, cultural attacks, um, you know, what would you say? Like they have been their brand, has just been ruined in the public mind. So you lack this sort of community support for public schools that they used to have. I mean, I went to public schools and I thought they did a pretty fine job. And, it was, it was good to have the support of people in my small town who were like, oh, you go to this school? Yeah, this school. And, that does mean something to people. I mean, we do need to be pumped up a little bit. I wish that we didn't, but the public schools have been under attack on all of those different fronts, and so you've seen an exodus, from there into homeschooling, and I would say that cohort is probably more likely to try out the online educational systems. Um, because homeschooling is hard. I mean, it takes a lot of work. I did it for a year, and I sort of out of necessity and on a whim, and I was a teacher before. Now, college level versus four kids ages 2 to, I think, 10 at the time. Uh, but it's difficult. It's really difficult to decide, okay, where do I begin? How do I manage four kids? Oh, I still have to, provide lunch for them. I have to clean up for whatever projects. Oh, we have a dishwasher repair guy coming too. So it's difficult, and maybe weren't if you're starting homeschool because you have exited the public schools because of the attack launched on them, then maybe you're not really aware of or prepared to handle how strenuous that project of homeschooling is. And then, programs, online programs look really good. Or, maybe you get into homeschooling and you think, well, I what am I doing? I'm preparing my child for college or career. I want them to be college or career ready. That's the buzzword, and it fools a lot of people. Um, if you want to be college or career ready, then you have to have someone certify that you are. And a lot of times that's the state, or it might be a private company that has been, accredited by the state or licensed by the state to do this. And I'm seeing fewer and fewer of those, really hardcore sort of traditional homeschoolers, and more of the people who are moving into it out of, you know, a desire to escape, the rot that's going on in public schools. And, they are very susceptible to this, to being brought into the agenda, right? And then, I mean, this is a little bit on a tangent, but I know in the UK, they had, there were some bills about homeschooling that we saw. And actually, I want to say that there was a study that where a UK school system or maybe in partnership with the UK government paired with Harvard University, and they were looking at the risks to children who had been in homeschool, and the risks that these study authors, the designers, had identified were, the risk that people could develop very extreme views that were dangerous to democracy and the larger community and the global good. So that was another way. This it doesn't have to do with credentialing and being certified by the state, but it has to do with state oversight of mental health, children's health, and wanting to get into monitoring homeschool in order to protect children and to make them college and career ready. uh, and so, yeah, I mean, I definitely think that uh, we're going to see homeschool co-opted into this agenda, because look, what is the real goal of the educational transformation that is underway? It is to have a personalized learning pathway for every individual out there. And personalized means it's fitted to your personality, to your physical, cognitive skills. It's fitted to your socio-demographics, status. Um, and how do you develop that really personalized educational plan? Well, you have to put someone on a screen. You have to track and trace all of their data, all of their experiences. So it's not just on a screen. It's through the Internet of Things, connected with your unique digital identity tag that will record all the experiences that you've had. And then this personalized learning pathway will not only assess who you are, and make a prediction about where you'll fit best in the workforce, but it will also deliver something like what we might call meducation, like medicine education, to change you so that you will fit into the pipeline and into the workforce better. And so, if you have homeschoolers doing their own thing at home on a screen, they're already there, you know? I mean, if all homeschool is someone not going to a public school building, but doing everything online on a screen, then they've already, succumbed to the agenda. And and then once you're doing everything online, then you have a nice tidy record in an electronic learner record, LERs, that's what they're called, learning and employment records. They can just nicely be uploaded to the cloud so that the AI can sift through it and see if you are sustainable, equitable, resilient enough to, uh, you know, accept all the hoops that you're going to have to jump through.
Yeah, and when things are on a screen, just like television, you can add little flickering, flashing lights that keeps the person's attention. You can put anything subliminal in there, or you can make everything fun and gamified so that the child accepts it and the parents accept it because look, he's sitting in the front of the screen, hasn't moved from it for 8 hours. He's learning.
Yeah.
And then you can sell wearables that monitor their heart rate, and then that connects to the whole monitoring system, so you know exactly what catches their attention, why it catches their attention, how and what ways are they fearful of it or do they enjoy it. um, just all these ways that they can know your child better than you. Well, I shouldn't say that, but in an algorithmic way. They would know your child better than you in a way that they can plug them into their pipelines, as you were talking about. um, I wanted to move on to college, to talk about college. My fiance's best friend, she just I'm not sure what degree she got, but she wanted to go for a master's. But to do that, she has to fill out all these applications, which each application costs an arm and a leg. And you have to get a statement from one of your professors. And then when everybody denies you, even though you have the GPA, even though you went through all the volunteer things that you have to do just to build your application, they still deny you and you're left out of pocket. And then you have to reapply and find another professor who's forgotten all about you. I mean, how many students they go through? And it seems like it's a scam. It's like a system to keep pumping money out of you even after they've gotten money out of you. And I wonder if all of college and has ever been was just more debt slavery.
Yeah. I mean, I sadly, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, you know, this is like it's difficult for me because when I was an undergrad, I thoroughly enjoyed and flourished, I would say. I mean, I had lots of things that I wish hadn't happened during that time, you know. I was not a perfect angel in college, always studying. Um, but you know, especially when I found out, okay, who are the serious scholars and the people who really understood their subjects and who loved the process of learning, you know. When I found those professors, I just I flourished. I loved it. I For the first time in my life, I felt like we could have discussions about these large questions that I had not been able to articulate in my own mind before. And now I had, you know, you had an area that you could practice asking those questions and learning about them and getting help finding, you know, old books that would help you reflect on them and things like this, right? So so I loved that part of the university, and I am sad. I mean, I'm deeply sorrowful that that's not going to be, you know, a part of my children's future because the entire institution, you know, is definitely going the way that you say. It is a money maker. Uh, it's a gate that people have to keep on paying to go through. You know, there is never an end to it. Just with, you know, it used to be enough that you had a high school degree. And then you had to have a college degree, and then you had to have a master's, and then you have to have a PhD, and then a postdoc, and da da da, and it just goes on and on and on. And you're right. I mean, they extract a fee for everything. There are so many different requirements for, if you want to get back into the gate to go get your master's, you have to have all of these, you know, statements of recommendation from professors. And it just, it makes people dependent on the system itself. It makes you have to behave in certain ways, that you're gonna get those rec letters, that you're gonna oh, I hear a knock. I have kids at home, so I'm not sure. We'll just listen out for that. Um but yeah, now, I mean, it is it's the end cap of this lifelong learning hamster wheel, right? And I think you're just going to see it extended on and on and on. And what is it doing? It's forcing people to keep playing in the system. Sorry, I got a little thrown off there by this little knock that I heard. That
That's okay.
it hasn't opened yet, but yeah, I mean, and I think the the real problem with higher education, besides the fact that people are in debt, and you find yourself going back to work at a restaurant, or whatever you did during the summers, that when you weren't in school, you find yourself going back to that, because when you get out of college, you don't have any guarantee of a job. And I'm not saying that you should have a guarantee, but the way the workforce is now, and how cutthroat it is, it's really difficult for anyone to get a job. And then the people who are saddled with tons and tons of debt are just really in a tough situation, right? Um, but beyond that structural economic program or problem is the fact that we're constantly having to prove who we are. You got to have a professor write something about you. You have to demonstrate through volunteer service that you care about people. You have to prove who you are constantly. And that goes back to your initial question about eliminating the human element from our economy, from all of our ideas about work and employment. I mean, look, we've all got to work. You have to have a way to pay your bills if you're not just living off your trust fund. Um, but wouldn't it be better if you could have a real conversation with your potential employer, and you could get to know each other as human beings, knowing that there is always going to be a little risk involved? There's going to be risk to the employer making, a decision to hire you, because human beings are sometimes unpredictable. I mean, we're free. We can make good choices and bad choices, but that is part of the reality that we have to accept if we want to preserve ourselves as human beings, rather than become assimilated into the AI robot driven machine, in which we just lend some soft skills to this very rational program. So I think the fact that you have to have a credential, you have to have so many licenses to prove that you're a global citizen so that you can drive a truck, it's all nuts. And if we could say, okay, I'm going to make decisions based on the best information that I have, the best intuition that I have about what's good for me, what's good for the other person, and then you enter into a relationship of some sort, whether it's business, whether it's personal, whatever, and you accept the responsibility for the choice you made, and you try to work it out, and you have conversations, and You don't view someone just as a liability risk to be managed or an opportunity for profit. You know, you look at people as human beings, and if we could get back to that, it would probably cost a lot less money to a lot less people, and we'd all be much happier, you know?
Um, yeah, and as you're pointing it out, this isn't just in the workforce, it's not just in schooling. This is every arena of society that this is happening, where they're putting the squeeze on us and making us just, they keep telling you to jump and you keep asking how high, and they keep saying higher, higher, higher. One example I have recently, I went to the DMV just to get a change of address on my ID, which they forced me to do for my CDL. But I go there with my lease with my name on it. I had the letter from the post office that showed my change of address. And then I had my internet bill with my name on it to this address. And she said it's not enough. And I'm like,
What more do
what?
you need?
Yeah, I said, the post office, a government institution, accepts that I live there. The landlord who owns the place accepts that I live there. And I'm paying for internet at this location. What kind of fraud do you think I'm running here where I'm paying for this and making it seem as if I live in a place I don't live? And you're the people who require me to change my address to begin with. And so I had to walk out of there with my tail between my legs. Well, of course, I had a few choice words. I'm lucky I didn't get arrested, but still, you're just scrambling around. Like, I'm supposed to take on utility bills that I don't, that are in my fiance's name. Now I have to get them out of her name just so I can change a fucking address. But this is what I think this is just some a part of the ploy to push us into these situations of the smart city infrastructure where you're always, like you said, proving yourself. You're always showing an identification of some sort or certificate or a license or your credit score or whatever it takes just to get on this bicycle and go to work if you do have a job.
Yeah, I mean, I was reading a book. Um, Actually, I can't remember which. I'm looking at both of them. I think it was From Hope Against Hope, which is a book by a lady named Nadezhda Mandelstam, who writes a memoir of, you know, her husband's difficulties. He was a poet in Soviet Russia, and uh, he was eventually killed um, in the camps. But so she writes this memoir about the whole situation of communism, and there's a scene, well, it's a chapter where she discusses how you would have, if you wanted to visit someone who was in the prison, like the Lubyanka, you would have to wait in line for so many hours, and you would get up to the desk, and just like you described, you think you have everything all in order, and you've just waited 8 hours, and then some clerk tells you, no, you need this. And so then you go to get that, and you can't get that because the second clerk says you need this from the first clerk. And so you have to go wait, 8 hours again in the line. And I mean, there are tons of literary accounts of this happening in the Soviet Union. It's not fiction, right? And we need to understand, and I'm not just trying to pick on communism here, like, and say capitalism is great. Don't no one should understand that's where I'm coming from, because it's much more complex and subtle than that. But um, you know, this is when we talk about getting the certifications and the licenses, and demonstrating proof of identity here in the US and any Western nation. It is no different than that process of waiting to visit a prisoner in the Lubyanka. It is all the same thing. It's a huge waste of time and productivity. And why can that happen? Well, part of it is that we all work for other people now, and those other people know that they have robots and software programs that can replace us. So, they just have to keep us busy so that we don't overthrow their tyrannical and brutal corporate regimes. And I pick on the corporations probably more than the government because I think I'm in Oklahoma and people here they naturally don't like the government. And I want to say, okay, yeah, the government's bad, but come on, they're in cahoots with these corporations. So don't think that the private sector is, innocent here. There's a massive partnership going on. So that's why I say corporations a lot, but it's corporations, government, it's public private partnerships, it's nonprofit sector. But my point is that in the West, they are doing the exact same thing that the Soviet regime did in Russia. They're wasting all of our time, draining mental energy, forcing us to prove who we are, so that we can do what? So that we can just stay on that hamster wheel, getting miserable and miserable until you know we have no energy left to overthrow the system and take things back and say we disagree with your narrative of technology and progress. You're That's not to say that all technology is bad, but it is to say that the way that things are going now is not necessary, it is not good, and it is oppressive, and it's being forced on us, and we need to stop that. So, if people, if they really want to understand, okay, how is this stuff going to affect you? You know, Look at all of the layoffs um, that we're seeing right now. I mean, corporation after corporation. You know, I think I just saw that. Who was it? I'm going to go blank, but 350 people laid off here, 1,000 people laid off here. It's coming. And everyone is going to be in that situation of having to apply for a job in which, you know, the labor supply is is massive and the, you know, the positions, the job supply is is very constrained. So it's an employer's game, and everyone's going to find themselves having to deal with it, especially and people who have a job, they need to understand that they're not immune from this because you know as corporations and employers in general try to become leaner and leaner, they're going to be letting people go who refuse to jump through all the hoops. If you want to keep your job, you're going to have to keep jumping through those hoops, proving who you are, proving not only that you have the skill set needed to do the job correctly, but that you are a good global citizen who is fully on board with the mission of the company, corporate purpose. And you're going to have to prove an almost religious devotion to your employer if you want to keep your job.
I feel like there's some sort of board. Well, you were saying corporations and government. I see them as one and the same, pretty much like it's a corporatized government. Um, but what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I feel like there's some sort of board meeting that takes place behind closed curtains where they're trying to figure out the best way to use places like the DMV and Walmart and traffic settings and court system to condition us into accepting all these hoops and hurdles. And so I wanted to talk about smart cities and where they came from and where they're going. We look at where it originated would be the globalization with global cities. And they're like, well, how do we control these global cities? Let's do the League of Nations. And then that gradually turned into the UN. And the UN is now, I guess you could call them the New World Order. Um, so, smart cities as they stand today, how do you see the evolution that's going to take place in our lifetime, or perhaps the next lifetime?
Well, I mean, everybody lives in a smart city already. You know, people do not realize this. If you live in a small town, it's it is still a smart city. It might not be the most advanced smart city, but it's still there. I mean, there, who knows? There might be a few backwaters, maybe in the Appalachian Mountains or some, some backwoods place that hasn't been touched yet. But for all intents and purposes, every city, every town, every rural area is already smart. And, you know, what do I mean by that? I mean that there are extensive technologies and policies that have been rolled out in order to measure and manage resources, our access to resources, including things like mobility, where we can go, how we uh, how we can go, what modes of travel are available to us, and so on. So, I have not been to any city in the U.S. that does not already have, traffic signal upgrades going on. Every city in the U.S. all at the same time. Some people were, or some cities were front runners in this, right? But for the most part, every city has, uh, traffic signals that now have lidar. They have radar. They have uh, cameras, the LED lights with Wi-Fi capability. They're programmable from a centralized location, and they're doing traffic monitoring and all sorts of things. They can sense when emergency vehicles are coming and change the signal. So that is a backbone of the smart city infrastructure, and all the upgraded lights that every city is getting, new LED lights. This is all part of smart city infrastructure because those lights have the capacity for Wi-Fi, or I'm sorry, Li-Fi, which is sort of light driven. It's the next generation of wireless data technology. So so every city has that. Every city has, smart governance going on, and smart development in its plans. So, if you're in the U.S., look at a site called Smart Growth America. They probably have similar sites for other countries, uh, but smart growth is it uses all of that technological capacity, uh, but it marries it to development patterns and the restructuring of land use, rezoning requirements, um, universal design principles, which are required to be implemented in any new construction or upgrades. So all of these types of things are going on in every single city. Smart growth economic policy, and then all of the technology infrastructure. And where it's going is the total measurement capacity, management capacity, and monetization capacity of your life, of everyone's life. It's going to collect data through the Internet of Things on everything you do. And that's going to form a a profile of who you are that's going to be recorded to the immutable digital ledger that's called blockchain. And that will be, unlocking your profile will be a requirement of, for getting a job, for getting healthcare, for getting anything that you want. So a smart city is it is a prison. It's a control mechanism. And really where it's going is toward a cognitive city. You know, people don't use that term so much, but you can Google it. I mean, it's a thing. Oklahoma City is a cognitive city, and I have a graphic that I pulled from marketing materials that says a smart city uses 5% of the data that that it collects, but a cognitive city uses 95% of that data, and it makes it has a lot of predictive capabilities that what people call a smart city, it doesn't qualify, I guess, anymore as um, or it doesn't have that capacity. So where's it going? We're just going to a Borg life. We're going to assimilate with the Borg. We're going to be told what to do, what hoops to jump through, what your playlist is. The playlist for what? For getting your driver's license. Okay, you've got check, 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 all these little things that you have to do. It's going to be the same if you want a job. Check, 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 check. You have your pathway and you have to check it. And nothing is going to be decided by the individual as an individual. You know, it's going to be decided by the AI, by, a program that's been written, uh, you know, partly by human being technologists, but then also, as AI can talk to itself, and develop itself, then it's going to be increasingly mechanistic and rules bound, um, and and it's a prison. I mean, I don't even know what else to say about it except that we're seeing it everywhere. You can look at, when you see new traffic patterns being laid out, then you need to go look at the rationale that's given for that innovative reconstruction. Look at it, at the county level or whoever controls your transportation policy. And I guarantee you that you're going to see that innovation or that new pattern justified in terms of sustainable development, controlling congestion, controlling emissions, optimizing performance efficiency. Once you know the buzzwords, then you can identify any program that's related to the Reset New World Order agenda, and they all are. So even things that people aren't paying attention to, say, upgrades to your water treatment facility. This is all part of Agenda 21, and Agenda 21 sustainable development is about measuring, managing, monetizing resources, which it does through sophisticated technologies that manage your access to anything and everything, and they ration the resources that uh, you can use. So, people need to get serious about understanding how this works, how it will affect them, because it will. It's already affecting them, and they need to. We've got to have a massive overthrow of these systems.
Yeah,
Easier said than done, right?
yeah, indeed. I kind of see it as if you were to take a snow globe, but instead of white snowflakes, they're black charcoal flakes drifting down to where we're inside of it and they can shake it up at any point or just let it settle. And then we listen to the same tune every single day. It's just nothing but cogs and gears underfoot. And never knowing, realizing that there's something much more beautiful just outside the globe if we would shatter it, shatter that illusion, get out.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Truman Show, right? I mean, there's so many hints that have been given, and before I understood this stuff, if I saw a film that now I understand is was predictive programming, you know, I I I would look at this in horror and I would think, this is this is so awful. Why would anyone put up with this, And 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 I remember thinking at one point, you know, well, I don't think this would happen because too many people realize the dangers of this, like an AI takeover or something. Because of course you see these horrific films, and everyone is thinking about it and they're warning about it in films, so surely people are going to be on guard against this and it's not going to happen. I remember having that sort of idea about things, and then when I saw, oh, this is this is all happening, and oh, these all of these films just lulled us to sleep thinking that we were maybe paying attention to it, but we weren't, because we didn't look at what's going in on our traffic lights, or boring things like, you know, uh, conservation easements on land, or the new fees on uh, your driver's license or insurance policy, or the licenses required to go take a fish out of the Arkansas River. We're not paying attention to that. And those sort of little things are really how they have implemented the foundations of this reset policy, and how they wear us out and extract our resources so that we're too tired and busy and distracted to clearly see what's happening, how it's happening, and why it is urgent that we stop it.
Yeah, if I can throw another analogy out there, because I've always hoped it'd be like, have you ever stepped out into the sunlight and it makes you sneeze because
Yeah,
it's so bright?
yeah,
Well, they say it's probably because your optic nerve is so close to your olfactory nerve that one overstimulates the other and causes you to have that reaction. And I've been hoping that people would get that sensory overload to where they finally have that reaction and sneeze that contagion out of their life. But it doesn't seem like that's going to happen because we've been so desensitized over the years. And that's what it's been, just this pounding desensitization to everything that we should have rejected from the beginning. Like you said, that infrastructure, the skeletons that are all around us, now they're building the body, and it's happening quick. The heart is already pounding, so we need to. I say this every time we have an episode. We need to get at it and deconstruct it, but people just seem to have settled into place right now. Those charcoal snowflakes settling on the ground.
yeah, and it is hard. I mean, so I get that. I mean, when 5 years ago, like I say, I still consider myself sort of a newbie at all of this because so many people knew about it for decades, um, and I'm learning new things every day, especially about the history that went into this. But when you figure these things out and you realize how much you don't know, and you're scrambling to to implement major changes in your life, and that affects your family and your colleagues and other commitments that you've made. I mean, it's a lot to take in, and it can be sort of stupefying, and it can lead to, I would think, some paralysis. So like, what do I do? It's just so much. How do I even begin to tackle this issue? And so I just want to acknowledge that, and sort of give people the grace, like it is hard. um and then inevitably, after a conversation like this, someone says, well, okay, you've talked a lot about the problems, what are the solutions? And so just before somebody on comments on your podcast, Josh, and says you guys didn't offer any solutions except to say that people have to stand up to this, then maybe I'll just throw this out there and say that I think part of the solution is to rethink how we think about solutions, you know, because part of the reason we're in the mess we're in is because we have demanded a solution to every problem, and we have demanded certainty for everything. I mean, this goes back to the, the Enlightenment era and the scientific revolution, and the desire to conquer nature, with a capital N, rather than to understand it, and to try to make sure that our opinions about reality actually fit reality, so that demand for action steps that are assumed to be, the answers to all of our problems that we're facing now. I think that is part of the reason that we're in this situation, is because we have been too forceful in demanding that kind of, just action in our daily lives. And so I think a huge part of the solution is really to to step back, to try to understand it as best as we can, in many different dimensions. I mean, okay, so what's going on here? And then to ask the question, why? Why is this going on? And is this good for human beings or not? You know, and just to engage in that kind of intellectual inquiry, just to allow ourselves to wonder about things, and to content, just to take a stab at maybe, a sort of philosophical, uh, inquiry into who we are in the relationship to this whole. Because if we start, I think, if we start looking at ourselves as individual human beings who are designed with a desire to know built into us, it is a part of our nature. If we recognize that and say, I'm going to pause, and I'm going to just develop that faculty, rather than demanding a, a response to a practical situation that is really outside of myself, then I think that's going to just open up possibilities. And the possibilities will probably not look anything like the kinds of solutions that we could imagine if we just have a practical external focus, I mean, people might say you got to tear down all the infrastructure, which I think is a good thing to do. That would be a good thing, tear it down. um, but that's not going to solve it all, because we got here not just by developing our technological capacity, but by desiring to conquer nature, to, rid the human condition of all the uncertainties that make it messy, and that make it free. So, we need to, I think, start on the inside, reevaluate our relationship with ourselves, with the broader world, with our fellow human beings, and with God, and just, you know, be open to where that process might lead. And that might not be very satisfactory to people who, they want to say, well, we've got to vote this party out, or we've got to, you know, stop doing this or whatever, it might not be that satisfying. But I think the power that the other side has is so great that we're going to have to find our own unconventional, weapons and defenses if we're going to have any chance of withstanding the assault that it has prepared for us. And so, what does that look like? It's got to be of a sort of spiritual, intellectual, uh, theological, philosophical, inquiry.
Yeah, I think that solutions start as opportunities, and opportunities start as possibilities. So the question shouldn't be what is the solution, but what are the possibilities? Start there
Yeah.
with open, active minds. And I think that's a great place to wrap it up. I know you need to tend to those little knuckles tapping on the door there. So I have to, or actually, I should let you give any plugs, products, or promotions that you'd like to put out there and tell my listeners how they can find you.
Thanks, Josh. I'm on Facebook. I've scaled back a lot just because of, life. My kids are a little older now, and I don't have quite as much time to be online on Facebook as much as I'd like, but I'm still on there. I still post. Um, and then I have a website, heartsoverhexagons.com, and I do have a good article on CBDC and cryptocurrencies that I'll just throw that out there, that anyone who's paying attention to that dialectic got to check out this article that I wrote there. And then on YouTube, it's also, you can find my channel, Hearts Over Hexagons, and it's got lots of links to, presentations that I've done around Oklahoma and for other people that are pertinent, you know, um, to almost anyone, no matter where you are. Just substitute your location for Oklahoma. And I would say listen to me at 1.5 times speed, because I think I'm talking really quickly, but I don't. I'm a slow talker. So the 1.5 speed, then you'll make it through.
All right. Well, this has been a great conversation. And I do encourage people to check out your article on CBDCs because it's valuable information, especially the folks out there who believe that we can somehow attack it with Bitcoin and the like. I thoroughly disagree with that. Yeah, shaking my head as well. But thank you for coming on. It's been great as always.
Thanks so much, Josh. And, just keep up the good work. Your show is always full of wonderful content, and I just appreciate your ability to bring out the best and the people that you have conversations with. You always make us look better than we would on our own.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad I have this beard, or you'd see me blushing. That's why I grew it to begin with. Thank you
Thanks.
very much, and you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Bye bye.
Please visit shitshooting101.com for more episodes, videos, blogs, and more to come. And if generosity compels you, go to the donation tab to help support the show to continue with no ads and no paywall. Either way, we appreciate your listens, follows, likes, and shares. Keep shit shooting, my fellow shit shooters, and bullshit be damned.
It's always brightest before dusk, although we do not notice as we've been basking in sunshine all day. For ages, we've been bathing in the novelty of VHS cassettes, DVDs, CDs, iPods, iPads, cable television, streaming, newer updates and upgrades, electronics, Wi-Fi, digital tethers, and scanners galore. My God, the future's so bright, I gotta wear shades. Where's the line? When does technology become technocracy? I believe the answer is here and now. We're 9 toes over the line, and this little piggy is inching closer and closer every installation. When is Control Alternate Delete used against us? Are we in control of our devices, or are our devices controlling us from the cloud? The very same cloud that darkens the dawn to the mental condition of nightfall. This is the ultimatum. Dusk approaches. The sun is setting on a bygone era that was just today known as this morning. And oh, how we will be mourning the loss if we simply stand staring as it rolls off the face of the earth into oblivion. Last bastion is the phrase of the day. Declare it. Be it. Save the rays of a memory in fading. It falls fast, so lift with strength, purpose, speed, and revive the dawn with torches and pitchforks against their eternal dusk. We are a billion sparks in the kindling. Take aim. Take flame. Love, peace, happiness. Signing off. Deuces.